On a Wednesday, and it's a day we've been waiting for a long ass time. It's our SEC preview show as the SEC football season officially begins on Saturday. We had to wait 3 extra weeks, but if they're able to get this entire season in, well worth the wait for the SEC season to get underway. I've got, Zach, 2 players who have the opportunity to alter the balance of power in the SEC this season. I'm fired up for this. We've both got our helmet schedules. I've got win-loss records for all 14 SEC teams. So we're going to go through and talk about the SEC football season. We'll get our predictions for the SEC East 1 through 7, the West 1 through 7. Who's going to be the SEC champion? And then what does this SEC football season mean for you? That will be a discussion we talk about. And, of course, it is throwing shade. Bobby brings it up. The Wednesday bucket. It's not the Magic Bucket Wednesday. Zach grabbed the wrong graphic, didn't you?
I did. That's on IT Guy. Let's see if I can work some magic. I may be able to work some magic, though, and fix that. We'll have to see.
It's also on me for not catching it because I think I need to be able to be here for checks and balances.
No, that's not your responsibility. It's mine.
I don't care. It's on
I will say this. Magic Bucket was on my mind this morning, so it may be an interstellar thing because I had a sticker that I had
in space.
that I found. I had a sticker that made me think, this may be the week that I put this sticker on the bucket because I'm always sticker forward thinking, and as we know, that's more one of us than the other. So
I'm loaded with stickers now. I'm not going to have a sticker run out ever again for this, at least for the rest of this football season. So, look, I'm looking forward to this shade. My shade has to deal with the grocery store, and I'm looking forward to it because I have a problem that I can't get around for whatever reason.
All right, guys, before we get going, please share the show. We are going to have a good show. This is SEC Preview. The SEC is back. What does that mean to you? This is going to be a really good show. My shade has venom today. And I haven't had a good, just brutal, just attack, great white shark style shade. I have one of those today. So, bottom right corner of your screen, if you're watching on Periscope/Twitter, you'll see those 3 little dots. You can share the broadcast. We need to pop up in your Twitter followers timeline. That would help us out a great deal. Also, on Facebook, more people will pile in over the next 5 to 10 minutes. And as you do, please share the show, share the broadcast. That would help us out a great deal. We can get these parties started. So there's a backstory to this schedule. So we have these schedules. This is like Austin's favorite thing in the world.
Not necessarily, not really.
Yeah, BS. You love these helmet schedules.
I love helmet schedules, but it's not one of my favorite things in the world.
Yeah, this is up there with your family, your wife, your dogs, and helmet schedules. You love these things. So he's going to get to use these all day today, and it's going to be a good show.
For sure. For sure. All right, let's get it going officially. Welcome into A to Z Sports. I'm Austin Stanley, lover of helmet schedules. He is Zach Bingham. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at A to Z Sports. You like our Facebook page at A to Z Sports Nashville. We're Nashville's on-demand sports talk network, and we go live every weekday morning at 8 Central Time. Got to thank our sponsors because they make it all happen for us and for you guys. RentersWarehouse.com, the professional landlords in the Nashville area. RentersWarehouse.com is where to go to find out how much your home can rent for. Mandu, the pulse of fitness, where one 15-minute workout equals 5 hours in the weight room. Mandu.com, your first workout is free. The Tucker Agency, Nashville's independent insurance agency, giving you relief at TuckerTN.com. Calvin & Subtle for your new hardwood floors and finishings, CalvinandSubtle.com. And the Bone and Joint Institute, when that injury happens, turn to them, the region's destination for comprehensive orthopedic care at boneandjointtn.org. So I do love helmet schedules. I don't love helmet schedules as much as Zach is portraying that I love helmet.
I don't know about that.
All right, do you want to go ahead and tell the backstory of the helmet schedule this year? Is that what your plan was to do?
Yeah, that was until you denied that you love helmet schedules, and I had to go full in on that. This was actually a gift, a peace offering, because Austin and I had a pre-show argument that was, it's definitely ranked top 5 pre-show arguments. We've been working together for maybe close to 7 years altogether. And now, but it's now remote. Like usually it'd be face to face, but this one was over the phone. This was a hang up 5 minutes before the show, and then we had to make up and play nice. And we didn't argue at all during.
We had a great show. We had a really strong.
So I found this helmet schedule, or this, the logo schedule, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to grab 2 of these, and this I'm going to, the little gift, like when it's kind of like, look, I said some things and some stuff. This is the schedule to make things right. So now we get to put them to good use.
We do. So I've got the helmet schedule. I've got win-loss records for everybody. And once I went through this morning and it all makes sense. Everybody, there's no like weird numbers. It's all realistic win-loss records for me. So we'll get to that here in a second with our SEC East and West predictions. But I do think there are 2 players, 2 position groups in this SEC season that have a chance to alter the balance of power. And it's the quarterback position, because obviously, and 2 specific quarterback positions and 2 specific players with this SEC season. So last year, veteran quarterbacks all over the SEC with Tua, Jake Fromm, Joe Burrow, and several others. Kellen Mond's still around. Jarrett Garantano is a veteran by trait, but not by performance. But you've got new quarterbacks coming into the conference, and 2 big names that I don't know how to feel about with 2 programs who have college football playoff goals. That's LSU and that's Georgia, because LSU is bringing in Miles Brennan, who is a 4th-year junior who has spent the last 2 years after he redshirted sitting behind Joe Burrow. Zach, Miles Brennan has only attempted 70 passes in his collegiate career in 2 years of backing up Joe Burrow at LSU. So you've got Miles Brennan. Like, what does LSU do after losing a lot of draft picks and obviously Joe Burrow, number 1 overall? Jamar Chase has opted out, so he's lost now his 3 best weapons in Justin Jefferson with the Vikings, Thaddeus Moss, the tight end, goes to the NFL, and Jamar Chase already has his eyes in the NFL. So I'm thinking that Miles Brennan and what he can do at quarterback will determine the SEC West, because I think Alabama's strong. They just named Mac Jones their starting quarterback for the year. Mac Jones had to come in and play because Tua got hurt. So even though that hurt Alabama last year, it helped out Mac Jones a lot in getting some experience to be the guy this year behind a big-time offensive line, and that Alabama roster is loaded as always. But I think Miles Brennan single-handedly controls whether LSU wins or not, or doesn't win the SEC West. So that's my first guy, is Miles Brennan, who is the new starting quarterback at LSU.
It's not a bad choice, because replacing Joe Burrow on the best college football team in the history of college football last year, statistically and on the field, if you watched all those games, that's not a guy that you just replace. Right? He single-handedly that year made him the number 1 overall pick. He went from like the 4th round to number 1 overall because of that season. That's a guy who was savvy. He had been through some things. He had transferred. He had sat. He had an okay year the year before. And now I do think that and LSU was trying to replace some of the coordinators too. Now, Ed Orgeron was the guy, right? So they had a lot of moving pieces, but hell, that's college football. That's football in general. You have to constantly keep replacing. But I think this is a huge key factor, because LSU has 2 things. First, they have the players, right? They have the talent because they're LSU. They recruit well. They have those. But the second thing is, I think they have the experience now, the confidence. They don't have to worry about the Alabama monkey on their back. That is something that they've gotten over. It doesn't mean that they're going to beat Alabama every year, but I do think that was a factor and had been for the last decade.
Yeah, Brennan is completely missing the point here. Brennan says, LSU, what are y'all thinking? Laughing emoji. They're down 18 starters, absolutely wasting your time. Brennan, dude, I'm talking about Miles Brennan being a complete wild card, and how LSU could not repeat as the SEC West champ. So thank you for following along there, Brennan. So now moving over to the East. and one player that has the opportunity to basically control the balance of power in the SEC East, it's this guy. It's Shakespeare-looking guy, JT Daniels. JT Daniels is now a quarterback at Georgia after transferring from LSU to Georgia in the offseason. And JT Daniels tore his ACL in week 1 of last season. Then he had another cleanup surgery in December on that knee, and he hasn't even been cleared to play for full contact yet, as Jeff Rubel jumps the gun and tries to call me out. So I know, guys, that JT Daniels isn't cleared. That's the point, is the fact that Jamie Newman royally screwed Georgia by transferring from Wake Forest to be the guy to replace Jake Fromm, and then he decides a month before the season, say, I'm opting out, I'm going to the NFL draft, which is a story in its own right. Now JT Daniels, who hasn't been cleared for contact yet, and now you've got true freshman, redshirt freshman Dejuan Mathis, who's a former 4-star guy, but he's never played before. And so now Georgia goes from Jake Fromm to someone they thought in Jamie Newman that they could win again with and win the SEC East. And now with JT Daniels' knee being up in the air and now a redshirt freshman guy, I feel like Georgia has an opportunity to lose the SEC East because their quarterback situation is completely up in the air.
See, I disagree. And this is probably where we separate. Austin, I don't think that will affect Georgia as greatly as you. I think their team is so good that, and the East has too many question marks. The East has gotten better. I get that. But Georgia, I think, is bar none the best team in the East. And I'm going to use this because shout out to Long Ball Melton on Periscope. The SEC stands for strong even through Corona. And I think Georgia will be strong even through a quarterback situation. He will eventually be cleared. Plus, they play Arkansas to start because the SEC hates Arkansas and loves Georgia. So if it's another week or whatever, he'll be fine. So that is actually I'm not as worried about that.
I think it's a big deal. Jeff Rubel brings up that Georgia has so much to replace on the offensive line. The running back DeAndre Swift is gone. And so you've got a guy who's never played in an SEC game in Dejuan Mathis who might have to start. Now, I get it. You're right. Like, you got the perfect opponent in week 1 in Arkansas, who's basically your non-conference opponent that you lost because of the coronavirus. So that's good for Georgia. But I'm talking about throughout the depths of the SEC because Georgia's schedule isn't easy. Because Georgia in week 2 plays Auburn. In week 3, they play Tennessee. But in week 4, they play Alabama. So there's 2 opportunities, Zach, right there with an inexperienced quarterback in Mathis and a JT Daniels who has missed so much time over the offseason because of his knee injury and who has not yet been able to get practice reps in with his new teammates. There's 2 big opportunities in the first 4 weeks against Auburn and against Alabama, where 2 losses for Georgia could have them on the outside looking in for the SEC title game where they expect to be. So that's why I think the 2 players who could alter the balance of power in the SEC are Miles Brennan at LSU because he's an unexperienced starting quarterback for LSU, the defending national champions, and whoever the Georgia quarterback's going to be because they don't have experience in live action playing with their teammates, and Georgia has a tough schedule ahead. Those are my 2 guys there.
Yeah, I think Georgia's going to be better than you think. They've been so consistent. Plus, they've got good coaches. They're like LSU. They get the players. They haven't been in this coaching carousel like all the other East teams have been over the last 10 years, right? They replaced Mark Richt with the right guy. And I think you talk about continuity. We've seen that already in the NFL. I think you're going to see that even more in the SEC because they're younger. Now, look, we don't know the ebbs and flows of how the season is going to go because of the coronavirus and all that stuff. But I think a good, solid coach like Kirby Smart will right the ways of Georgia, so you don't have these type of problems.
Yeah, but you're out here like propping up continuity when I'm naming 2 quarterbacks and 2 quarterback positions who have zero
system continuity. That's the point.
There's no system continuity. Like, what system continuity are you talking about, Zach?
The Kirby Smart system.
Good. That's good, but the quarterback is inexperienced at both places.
You have that in college football, Austin.
Brady's
Don't sit there like that's a surprise. It's not like Drew Brees starting for the New Orleans Saints over the last 5 years. Like, you have different players play football each year. It's a college football thing. You of all people should know that.
I know that, and that's why I'm literally bringing up the two quarterback positions that have an opportunity to make or break those two teams and change the East and the West. And we'll get to our predictions, and you'll see kind of how I think about this, about Georgia and LSU's overall quarterback controversy, because Miles Brennan's going to be the guy, but isn't he good? He's been very underwhelming. Like, LSU had to go get Joe Burrow because Miles Brennan was not as good as a 5-star quarterback recruit was supposed to be. And now you've got two inexperienced guys for Georgia in a year where they're reloading a lot of talent on the O-line. They don't have their running back. They lost Cager, their big wide receiver on the outside. So Georgia has lost a lot, Zach, not just the quarterback.
So this leads us to our question that everybody can answer. What's the number one thing you're most excited about this SEC football season? It starts on Saturday at 11 o'clock. You got games all day. This weekend, I think, will feel like the most normal weekend since the coronavirus infected our country. This weekend for sports fans, because look, there won't be fans, or as many fans. It won't feel 100% normal, but it will feel as normal as it ever has since March.
Yes.
The question is, what is the number one thing, though, that you are most excited about this Saturday when SEC football returns?
All right, Zach, before we get your answers, let's talk about Renters Warehouse Nashville, the professional landlords in the Nashville and surrounding area. RentersWarehouse.com is where you go to find out how much your home can rent for. If you're losing income during the pandemic, don't panic, sell your house. Renters Warehouse can help you out there. If you already own rental property, let the pros do it. There's no binding contracts, no marketing costs, no upfront fees. Just $89 a month. They do everything for you. Get that mailbox money. Learn how to earn that long-term equity at renterswarehouse.com.
A to Z Sports, we're talking SEC football on this hump day. We have shade, so best watch out because I'm coming with the fangs today on two topics. I got two bits of venom shade. One person I absolutely hate, despise. The other one's just a loser. We're asking you the number one thing this season. We do have this is kind of funny because it goes to we'll get this out of the way because we'll talk about it later. We got Corona Bro himself, Ethan, comes in, that there is going to be a season. Don't rain on the Corona parade. There's going to be SEC football on Saturday. Let's just bathe and soak ourselves in that. I think that is something. Tom goes with positivity. That's what I'm most excited for, is just football. Corey says, bought a UK tailgate bus. Won't be able to put that in use this year. Well, I guess you could. It's just it would be a little bit different. Watching Auburn football, Karen goes with War Eagle. Georgia, talk about replacing their offensive coordinator. Zach says, excited to see which fan base has a complete meltdown because there will be one. I agree with that. That's usually the case.
Yes. Yeah, and you're right. You're out here preaching continuity for Georgia, and they got Todd Monken as a new offensive coordinator who's taken over for his first year as that play caller. And, Zach, you should know a little bit about that offense.
Yeah, but, again, I just think Georgia's going to be better than a lot of people maybe predict from last year.
Like, give me some reasons.
Because I think they have players. They have athletes. They replace all the guys. They're LSU. Austin, do you understand what they've turned into? Georgia has turned into Alabama and LSU in the East. You doubt them, they always prove you wrong. That's because of Kirby Smart. You can sit there and pray and hope because you're a UT fan to say, hey, maybe they'll be worse. Maybe they'll be worse. Florida's the same way. South Carolina's the same way. Missouri, all the teams in the East. But Georgia is the staple and has been for the last several years. That's what I'm betting on. And I think in a year, that's just going to come to fruition even more.
Kirby Smart has also continuously choked each year that he's been the head coach, minus the first year when he was taking over for Mark Richt, who won 10 games the year before. So, like, Georgia is not like the world beaters. Like, they recruit well. They recruit fantastic. That's great. But they're making bad coaching decisions, and they lose games they shouldn't, a.k.a. South Carolina last year when Jake Fromm threw 3 picks in that game, had no business losing to 4-8 South Carolina last year. Georgia loses a lot. They lost.
How did that influence their season?
They weren't able. There was a massive hiccup. They weren't able to have an opportunity.
If they would have beaten LSU, they would have gone to the be quiet. That's wrong. Like you know that. They got to the SEC championship game. That did not hurt their season in whatsoever.
It ruined.
No, it didn't. You know that.
It ruined their opportunity to maybe go to the college football playoff, even by losing the SEC. If
they would have beaten LSU, they would be the best team. What are you talking about? We were talking about Georgia going to the college football playoff if they beat LSU. Do you not remember last season?
Yeah, I do that. But do
you? Because South Carolina, that hiccup made no difference. Even they've always made the SEC championship, right? They've lost to better teams down the road, but you can't spew garbage like that. That's wrong.
Kirby Smart has made really bad coaching decisions in SEC title games that has helped.
That's different than the season. We're not talking about SEC title.
I'm talking about multiple. I'm talking about reasons. Like, you're out here like propping up Kirby Smart as basically Nick Saban, and
I didn't say that. You said that.
You're saying that he's building a program like Alabama. You did say that, and they recruit well.
Of the East over the last 4 years, it's the truth. Who goes to their championship game every year? It hasn't been Florida. It hasn't been Tennessee. It hasn't been any of the East teams.
That's because Jim McElwain sucks, and you put Florida in the hole. Dan Mullen's climbing them out of it.
That's an excuse, not a reason.
No, that is the reason. It's because Florida has a new coach and Dan Mullen, who I believe in a lot, and Tennessee is on a massive rebuild. Kentucky is still Kentucky, even though Mark Stoops has done a great job, and Will Muschamp is basically
because you don't like Georgia.
No, this has nothing to do with Georgia versus Tennessee. This is just the fact, is that they have a new offensive coordinator, a brand new quarterback, 2 options at quarterback who have never played or started a game at Georgia. They've got a bunch of new offensive linemen. They need a new running back. They lost some wide receivers, but you're out here touting continuity for Georgia because they have Kirby Smart.
Program continuity. It's a thing. Head coaches matter in the SEC and college football.
Exactly. There's been no off-season practices and spring practices where they can actually build some chemistry with the new players they have. And then
you practiced for the last month. What are you talking about?
JT Daniels, who's probably the best.
What are you talking about? You're like, these kids are just going to play for the first time ever on Saturday. Like, they've been practicing. I get the quarterback situation.
You know who they practice with for weeks? You know who they practice with for weeks as their starting quarterback? Jamie Newman, who opted out. And now they got JT Daniels, who's still not cleared. It's Wednesday on a game week, and JT Daniels is not cleared physically. And then you've got Dejuan Mathis, who's talented, but he's not a passer like JT Daniels.
Maybe you're just in denial that Georgia has run the East for so long and it will continue. But
this has nothing to do with the past, Zach. It's right now. It's 2020. This has nothing to do with 2018 or 2017 or 2019. It's moving forward now. Georgia has a bunch of new pieces.
The same programs are always in it, bud.
All right, you're just saying like vague stuff because you have nothing.
Vague? I've brought up facts. You said something so incorrect like 5 minutes ago. It's not even funny about them losing to South Carolina and how it was massively impacted their season, which was not even the case.
In the SEC last year.
Huh?
It was the worst loss in the SEC last year.
And it affected their season in zero way.
It definitely did. All right, let's move on from this.
No, it didn't.
Let's move on. It did because they couldn't have made the playoff without.
That's wrong. You're wrong.
If they would have, Zach, God dang it, you're not listening to what I'm saying. If they beat South Carolina last year, they still could have potentially had an opportunity to make the playoff even by losing to LSU in the championship game.
Digress.
All right. So, what are you most excited about?
If they would have won.
So, what are you most excited about?
They had to beat LSU.
What are you most excited about this SEC season? If you could let me.
Well, it actually starts Saturday. It's Lane Kiffin, baby. The start of the Lane train. Ole Miss, and I'm all really excited about LSU and Mississippi State. But I have ties to the state of Mississippi. I lived there for 4 years. I went to Ole Miss. It was probably one of the best 4.5 years of my life. But it's what are these Mississippi teams going to do with these brand new known commodity coaches? Is Lane Kiffin going to do anything at Ole Miss, or are they going to be the same thing? Is he going to recruit well? Is he going to bring the hype on Saturday? Are people going to be juiced at 11 a.m. watching Florida, or is Florida just going to beat the brakes off of Ole Miss because they are what they are, and their quarterback, John Rice Plumlee, can't throw a football? All he can do is be a glorified running back playing quarterback. And then Mike Leach, how will he do? How will his team? So my excitement is very obscure, but I do think that it has national attention because people like Mike Leach and people like Lane Kiffin, but people do not like Mississippi teams. They give them zero respect for good reason.
Well, I don't think Mike Leach is going to work out in the SEC. He's not built. He doesn't recruit.
But you're curious to see.
Oh yeah, because I'm entertained as hell by Mike Leach because I'm going to watch. I've never watched a Mississippi State press conference before. Never. But you bet your ass I'm going to watch Mike Leach's press conferences. Same thing with Lane Kiffin. I watched Hugh Freeze press conferences because I was a crazy train down there with what he was doing. Now, Lane Train, I think, can be successful because he knows what you have to do in the SEC, and that is recruit. For me, the most exciting thing I'm looking for about this week is the CBS intro. Once that CBS intro starts playing, I will feel like the SEC has arrived and we have reached another step in normalcy because that da-da-da-da, and everybody's going to have the hair on their neck and arms stand up and you're going to say, let's crack open a beer and let's ride. And so that is what I'm most looking forward to is the intro to the very first game, the SEC on CBS. I will be jacked up for that moment.
Yeah, well, and that's the feels. That's the emotion. That's probably why, we get in more arguments about the SEC than we do any other topic because it's passionate. There's opinion. And here's the hard part about the SEC and what we're about to do here later on in the show, and that's predict because, as I said, there's always a carousel of players. There's new players each year. There's new starting quarterbacks each year. And because we don't get an opportunity for like a preseason or they're not known in the everyday world, we don't know. So we question. We say, oh, they're not going to be good, or they are going to be good because this guy has a history. But that's the excitement and the anticipation of what college football brings. And here's the best part. Compare this to the last couple of weeks. Austin, ACC's been playing. The Big 12 has been playing, right? I haven't really paid attention that much to those teams.
I've popped in and out of games.
Right, but popping in and out is not sitting down with some popcorn and a cold beer and saying, let's ride for the next 3 hours, hell, 6 to 7 to 8 to 10 hours, right, which I'll be doing on Saturday. The best part is the SEC is the best conference in college football, period, bar none. You cannot argue that. Now you're going to get great matchups every single week, week in and week out. And the win-loss, I don't know what it will mean at the end of the season. We'll talk about that too at the end of the show. But this is Florida Ole Miss. That has juice. That has great storyline when any other time where if it was Wisconsin against, I don't know, Iowa, bleh, that's gross, right? So this is exciting because it is the SEC. It's unique because it's 2020, but there's a lot of cool matchups I'm looking forward to.
All right, A to Z Sports on a Wednesday. Let's get to the SEC East predictions. We're going to go we've got records for all 7 SEC East teams. So we're going to go through win-loss predictions for the SEC East. But first, tell the people about Calvin and Subtle.
Yeah, Calvin and Subtle is where you need to go get your hardwood floors. It's this simple. 615-448-6414. That's 615-448-6414 or online at calvinandsubtle.com. Rip up that old carpet or your old hardwood floors and upgrade your house. Right now, coronavirusville that we live in, it's maybe not sell your house, maybe just renovate it and extend, right? 615-448-6414. Calvin and Subtle can help you, and you're going to be learning more about hardwood floors and how everything works over the next several weeks. And Calvin and Subtle is going to be teaching everybody that. 615-448-6414.
It is esports. Don't forget, it's not the SEC, but code MyTitans doubles your first deposit at mybookie.ag, which you can still bet on college football at mybookie.ag. Use code MyTitans to double your first deposit there. All right, Zach, we're gonna go through. We're gonna go 7-1 in our SEC East predictions here on our SEC preview show. We do this every year. I've got the helmet schedule. You've got yours ready to go. So, Zach, I will start it off with 7th, last place in the SEC East this year. I have the Vanderbilt Commodores, who play football a mile and a half down the road from where I'm sitting right now. I have Vandy, Zach, going 1-9 this year. It's just with all the opt-outs Vandy's had, they're probably going to start true freshman quarterback Ken Seals on Saturday against Texas A&M. They're a 32-point underdog at A&M, who's ranked 10th in the country. I have Vandy's only win against Mississippi State.
I have Vandy not winning a game.
Really?
I think that they're going to go 0-10. And it's because of a lot of reasons. It's because of there's a lot of question marks. They lost, Keyshawn Vaughn. They've lost guys.
Kalijah Lipscomb, Jared.
I don't think Vanderbilt wants to be there. And when you don't want to be there, they play Mississippi State. They don't play them until like week 6 or 7. They're going to be checked out to win that game. Nobody's going to be at the game, right? That's the funny part. But Vanderbilt, I have zero confidence or zero faith in them and we know this because we live in Nashville. We followed Vanderbilt, right? We used to go to their press conferences, years ago when we were starting our company. But you follow Vanderbilt, and Vanderbilt, their success is based on the confidence that they attain off of their non-conference wins.
Mm-hmm.
They don't get that luxury this year. This is full SEC slate. This is murderer's row all year long. They're going 0-10.
I've got them 1-9. I think they can beat. I don't have a lot of high hopes for Mississippi State. We'll talk about them when we get to our SEC West predictions. So number 6 in the SEC East, I have Missouri, and I have Missouri 1-9 with new coach Eli Drinkwitz, and I have Missouri's only win is over Vanderbilt. So I don't have a lot of faith in the two teams with gold in the SEC East, in Vandy, Missouri, both going 1-9. Who do you have at 6?
All right, so this is my bold prediction of the East. I think South Carolina, I have them at 1-9.
Wow.
I have Missouri really bad too, so don't think that they're a lot. But I have South Carolina 1-9. Now, I wouldn't – if South Carolina just based out of just sheer adrenaline comes out and upsets Tennessee, I'm going to be like, oh, maybe I was wrong.
Yeah, right.
But I have them 1-9. I think this is Muschamp's year of going down.
But he also can't get fired because they would have to pay him he and his staff $15 million to get him out of there.
Yeah, in a weird, strange Corona year. But I don't think South Carolina is going to be good.
So I don't have South Carolina much better than that. So I've got Vandy and Missouri at 1-9 each. I've got South Carolina at 2-8.
Yeah, that's what I have in Missouri.
So we basically feel the same way about South Carolina and Missouri because the two wins for those two programs are over Vandy and Missouri so that's the bottom of the SEC East has an opportunity to be really sucky this year. So I find that interesting. So you have Missouri at 2-8, you said?
Yeah, so those are my bottom 3. And look, Big Pat comes in at the perfect time. We're talking SEC East. I don't know what your SEC East prediction is, but I'm curious. So we got Missouri, South Carolina, Vandy. They're all at the bottom.
Right, yes.
Then we've got kind of that mid-tier, right?
Yeah.
That UK, Tennessee.
It's 2 teams. It's the next. It's Kentucky and Tennessee. And so which order do they go in? And Zach at number 4 in the SEC East, I have 6-4 Kentucky. And I think six wins for Kentucky would be a big-time success this year. And the only reason I have Kentucky at 6-4, I also have Tennessee at 6-4, but I have the Vols with a head-to-head win over Kentucky to have the Vols 3rd in the East, but the same record as Kentucky at 6-4.
So I have them.
Who's them?
UK at 4-6, and I have Tennessee at 5-5. Tennessee, think with your head. And I look at UK and Tennessee's schedule, and these wins, I mean, it makes sense. Kentucky should only win 4 games. Tennessee, and I'll just go ahead and say it. We'll talk more about it on Friday. But Tennessee should, and it doesn't mean that it will happen this way. That's why they're predictions. But Tennessee should beat South Carolina, Missouri, Kentucky, Vanderbilt, and Arkansas. Those are the teams they should beat.
Yeah.
Those are 5 wins. Anything else is gravy. But Tennessee should not beat Auburn, should not beat Texas A&M, should not beat Florida, should not beat Georgia, and should not beat Alabama. That's what I'm basing my prediction on. That doesn't mean that it'll happen, but that's why I have them 5-5.
See, Corey says, I'll take 6 wins in all SEC schedule. Big Blue Nation there for Corey. Well, Corey will like what I have coming up for this Saturday. Zach, I have Kentucky beating the Auburn Tigers this week.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Just that. I think that's something where Kentucky will be slept on by Auburn a little bit. So I think Kentucky and Tennessee both at 6-4. We'll get to where I think Tennessee gets that extra win, like you're saying, because I've got the Vols with 1 more win. So we'll get to that here in a second. So number 2 in the SEC East, Zach, I have the quarterbackless, brand new offensive coordinator, brand new offensive line, Georgia Bulldogs.
I'm glad you do, because if you would have had them winning, I would have pitched.
Well, of course not. That's the whole show is based off of me having doubts about the quarterback at Georgia and LSU.
I know.
And so I've got Georgia finishing 8-2 with losses to Alabama and Florida. And so that's where I had the Bulldogs. Look, they're still a good program, but 8-2 and not winning the SEC East is a disappointment for Kirby Smart and Georgia Bulldogs.
It is a step back.
And that was my whole basis.
But you were talking about them like they were just god awful.
I was talking about the altering of the balance of power, which means I think Florida will win the SEC East this year, which is a massive shift in the balance of power for Georgia to not be able to win it again.
So I have opposite. I have Georgia winning the East, and I have Georgia going 9-1, and I have Florida going 7-3. I think Florida's going to slip up a couple of times. And if you look at Florida, again, you go by schedule. Like I think I want Ole Miss to beat Florida, but I don't think that's going to happen. But if you look at what Florida has to deal with, they've got to deal with Georgia and LSU. Those are 2 really tough opponents. And then they've got Texas A&M, which I think is their swing game, on top of Tennessee, right? So I don't expect them to beat Georgia or LSU, and I think they're going to lose one of the 2 games to A&M or Tennessee. So that's my justification of them losing 3 games.
So it's interesting. I have Florida at 8-2, and I have Florida losing to LSU. I have Florida beating Georgia. That's why they're getting into the SEC title game. I have Florida even winning the SEC East, but dropping that last game of the year, December 12th. I predict this year, December 12th.
You've done this before and gotten completely burned.
You're right. I have done this, but I'm sorry, December 5th. December 5th, 2020, the Tennessee Vols will beat the Florida Gators because it's going to be late. It's going to be late in the year. The Vols in Florida have only played once in the month of December. And Big Pat, I bet you know that what it looked like when Travis Stevens ran train over that Florida Gator defense down there in December in 2001. So that's it. That's Tennessee's 6th win, is beating Florida on December 5th.
Wow. All right. So I'm trying to I want to go back and look at the history of this, because one year you called your shot of Tennessee beating Florida, and like early on, and that was the year that they got trashed. It was just a couple of years ago. They were down 14-0. Was that last year?
No, it was Jeremy Pruitt's first year. Is when they had 6 turnovers in the first half.
He put all of his chips in and was like a bloodbath guarantee that Tennessee was going to beat Florida. And it was 14-0 by the time that you blink your eyes midway through the first quarter.
Garantano had an interception backed up in his own territory. Then he had a sack fumble. And then Austin Pope, when you thought Tennessee was going to have an opportunity to get back in the game, he was about to score a touchdown, but he fumbled out of the end zone for a touchback. So, yeah, that was a really bad game. But that's the last time I've predicted Tennessee to beat Florida. But this one's in December, so it's different.
It's different. Yeah, well, yeah.
It is different. What are the swamp lizards going to do when it's cold outside? That's a big deal there. So,
well, and as Ethan says, the Corona Bro himself, it may not even be played, right? For all the fear mongers out there. But I'm curious. Let's take a quick poll before we get to the West. For everybody watching on Periscope, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch, who do you think wins the East? Do you think so? It's between maybe three teams. If you really think Tennessee could backdoor their way in, let's throw them in there. But Florida, Georgia, or Tennessee. So pick your poison. I don't think anybody's gonna, or not a lot of people are gonna pick Tennessee. But comment in the comment section. Who do you think will win the East? Rob says Georgia right there. Long Ball Melton says Georgia. Alex agrees with you. He says Florida. So does Elk70 watching on Twitch. So shout out to the Twitchers. Rick says UGA. Trevor is I think that he needs to take his medication because he says Vanderbilt because they're going 0 for 10.
I think Vandy gets one. I can't. I gave every team in the SEC one win. Everybody gets one.
Surprise, surprise. Big Pat goes with Florida.
Hey, Jeff, don't skip over Big Ten Jeff. He says Florida. So I got to make sure all my Florida votes get counted. Right? You got to make sure you count well in the state of Florida.
For sure. And look, I think it's a two-horse race, Florida or Georgia.
Absolutely.
And I don't know. That's the best part about Saturday is I think the Ole Miss Florida game is a great gauge to see what Florida is. Florida historically comes out and plays pretty well opening game for two reasons.
Well, normally they're playing like Charleston.
Yeah, right. They're playing the School of the Blind.
Yeah.
Or like Florida Atlantic or Florida International or whatever. But the other thing is they played Michigan a couple of years ago to open the season and they did well. So this is a different type of test. It's on the road. It's in Oxford. And Ole Miss is going to be wearing those icy baby blue jerseys. It's going to look sick.
So right now, Florida is a 14.5-point favorite over Ole Miss.
Yeah, I mean, Ole Miss is bad. But Ole Miss, surprisingly, they scored a ton of points last year against LSU, but it's a brand new team, brand new offense. I just don't know.
At Georgia, if you want to look at the Georgia spread, it's disgusting. Georgia is a 26-point favorite. They go to Arkansas.
I think that quarterback situation is going to
matter. But it's Arkansas. We've discussed that. Like the reason why Georgia is going to roll through week one is because they play Sam Pittman's new team and they've got nothing. And I think there's we'll just kind of get to it. I think Arkansas is going to go 1-9. I think their only win is Missouri. And so you look at who I have really being bad this year are the new coaches, Arkansas and Missouri. They're going to go 1-9, and Vandy's going to go 1-9 just because they're just weak overall. I have a lot of bad teams in the SEC overall. So
here's let's just talk about this, Austin. Could we be wrong on this? Is this the year that the bad teams upset some of the good teams, surprisingly? Or is this the year kind of like we predict? The bad teams are going to be really, really bad, and the good teams are going to just be good.
Yeah, the bad teams are going to be really bad, and the good teams are going to take advantage of it. That's how I feel about it.
So do you think – and I obviously agree with you because that's what my schedule says. Right. But do you think – and this is kind of what I'm basing it off of. Do you think that the kids, the players, will get to a point when Vandy's 0-6 to say, like,
I don't want to do this anymore?
This year doesn't matter anyway, right? Right. I think that's a human thing. Let's take sports out of that. I think the closer we get to December, and obviously some election stuff, but we're not talking about that. I think more people will be like, all right, I'm just cashing in this year. Well, 2020 is cashed in. I'm not thinking about anything. I'm not going to make any plans for the rest of this year. Everything's looking ahead to 2021. Curious sports follows suit.
Yeah, well, Bobby says, I think it'll mostly be chalk this year. Talent's going to win. Rob jokes that Vandy's going to opt out after week 4. But I think, to your point, yeah, and I could see that being the case with some NFL teams. Now, NFL has the ability to control their players more because they're employees.
Yeah, fine them for not wearing masks properly.
Yeah, and I thought, and it hasn't happened since the first week 2 of baseball, but I thought that might happen in baseball too. If a team sucks and they're 10-49, what do they care about trying to go play their 60th game? Who cares, right? But I do think that's interesting because college kids and college football players still want to be college kids. And so what happens with Vandy, Missouri, or an Arkansas or whoever who is really losing a lot of games by a lot of points and they don't have the motivation to not be social anymore? I think that's a very big point that you brought up there.
All right, so let's continue our conversation with the West. You say Arkansas, you had them at 1-9?
Arkansas, I have at 1-9.
I as well. I have them at 1-9.
So we'll skip through that. That's just a teaser of the SEC West. But we're going to get our full SEC West predictions and ask you guys, who do you think will win the West? But first, let me tell you about the Bone and Joint Institute. boneandjointtn.org, the region's destination for comprehensive orthopedic and sports medicine care. They do everything under that one building, from the beginning of your recovery process to the imaging, the test, to diagnose your injury, to the very end. The surgeries happen there and the rehab happens there, and their top-notch facility. boneandjointtn.org, over a dozen doctors who specialize in anything that could possibly happen to you. So make sure you don't fumble in your recovery at Bone and Joint Institute.
A to Z Sports. Don't forget, SEC football coming your way. We're going to have Titans Thursday tomorrow, and then predictions, right? We got game predictions coming back this year on Friday. Austin's been scratching his itch on his neck with mybookie.ag with his promo code MyTitans. Got him more money in that bank account. You can get more money in your bank account if you want to bet. You can bet on anything, right, Austin? I mean, you don't have to be pro.
Anything.
So we'll promote that more on Friday. Plus, I got a Madden game on Friday that I'm looking forward to. But let's get to the West here, Austin. 1-9, 1-9 Arkansas. We agree on that. Where do we go from here?
So I've got at number 6, I've got a Mississippi school, and I have State. I've got Mississippi State going 2-8 this year. I do have. You want to know their wins? Because I think you want to know the Egg Bowl that I predict, right?
Yeah.
I've got Mississippi State beating Arkansas, obviously, because Arkansas is 1-9. Mm-hmm. And I also have Mississippi State beating Missouri in that last week. So I've got the Bulldogs under Mike Leach going 2-8.
I don't think they'll be that bad. I think they'll be bad. I'm going 3-7 because I think they beat Vanderbilt. So there's the difference. There's the outlier. I have Vanderbilt. I have Mississippi State beating Vanderbilt to get them to 3-7.
I was wrong. I've got Vandy's only win. Yeah, Vandy's only win is Mississippi State.
Yeah, that's what I say. You're right.
Yeah. So
you're wrong, but you're right.
I was wrong, but I was in line with what I've been talking about.
I don't think Vandy is beating Mississippi State they would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They'd be 0-5, and just losing to Ole Miss. And then they go lose to another.
The reason why I did that, I actually did have some logic. The reason why I picked Vandy to beat Mississippi State is because Mississippi State plays Alabama the week before. And so that's why I think that there's an opportunity for State to be limping into that game after getting demolished by Bama, and Vandy can steal one.
All right, let's look at this glass. So we've looked at Vandy glass half empty the entire show.
Not even half empty. It's just been empty.
I mean, there's a drop of liquid in yours.
I've got one drop. You've got 0 drops.
Mine is just an empty glass.
Yes.
But let's look at this in the other lens. So let's look at their hard games. First 2 games of the season, A&M and LSU. Those are 2 losses.
Right.
But in the middle of their schedule, South Carolina, Missouri, bye, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, and Kentucky.
Yeah.
Those 5 games, you could actually argue that Vanderbilt in those 5 games could win 3 of those games because they're all not good teams.
Right. And Vandy caught breaks with the schedule. Now, Louis, who's a Vandy fan, says, I'll be glad when I get to laugh at you guys, anchor down. Lou, we've been laughing at you for months But still, but Vandy is not a good football team. They've had a lot of players opt out. And so I don't expect a lot from Vandy, but they did get a gift with the schedule. I mean, they did, like you just said, that the middle of the schedule is very favorable for Vanderbilt. Now, Trevor says 3. Nah, maybe 1 win.
Granted, I said glass half full. I predicted them to go 0 for 10. So, let's not get this misconstrued.
Right. All right. So, who do you have 6th in the West?
So, I have State at 3 and 7.
Okay.
Because you had them 2 and 8. Then I have Ole Miss, my Ole Miss Rebels, at 5 and 5.
There it is.
I have them even. Homer pick, go
well,
for it.
Because
I'm a homer.
But that's exactly what happened. Like, I had Tennessee at 6 and 4. You had Tennessee at 5 and 5. You have Ole Miss at 5 and 5. I have Ole Miss at 4 and 6. And I think 4 and 6 for Lane Kiffin in his first year with what this year is. I mean, would you be okay with that? Would you be okay with?
Hell yeah! As long as he is in the spotlight, which he's a attention whore. So, he'll try to do that on his own. That makes recruits want to go. Plus, Ole Miss, I think, is becoming cooler, right? There's a cool factor to it. It's cooler than Mississippi State.
No doubt.
Cooler than Arkansas and cooler than Missouri. Texas A&M has its own things that it sells, and then you've got the LSUs and Alabamas of the world and Auburns. But as long as Ole Miss stays in the conversation, because Lane Kiffin's a lunatic, he's an attention whore, and he has cool things, I'll be happy, kid.
So where's your 5th win? Because I agree with Jeff Rubel. I don't see 5 wins for Ole Miss.
Well, I have Kentucky, Arkansas, Vanderbilt, South Carolina, and Mississippi State. Those are 5 wins.
Kentucky is the one that I don't necessarily see happening.
Right, but that's a toss-up, right? Either one.
I think
you wouldn't be surprised if Ole Miss won. Wouldn't be surprised if Kentucky won.
I would be surprised if Ole Miss is able to win that Kentucky game. Kentucky's
Florida somewhat close.
I don't think that's going to happen. But Kentucky is so much further ahead as a program than where Ole Miss is.
Oh, I'm fully.
Maybe
that's my homer pick.
Yeah, maybe so. But because you're looking through the lens of what Kentucky is typically is. But I don't think that's Kentucky this year. I have Kentucky going.
Well, what is 6 and 4? Kentucky usually does 2 things. They lose a game that they're in that could upset and change their season, and they lose. That happens every year, right?
It's usually Florida early in the year for Kentucky.
Or Georgia late in the year. That has happened.
Yeah.
And then Kentucky usually loses to somebody they don't have any business losing to. So I'm betting on history. I'm actually not just looking on what Kentucky has been as a better program. I'm saying they wet the bed twice a year. And it's like, dang it, Timmy, why'd you wear diapers? And that's what Kentucky is.
All right, Ethan says, imagine picking to live in Starkville for 4 years over the Grove. I've never been to Starkville for a reason.
Well, I mean, you probably are, have some beach nut in the side of your mouth and are spitting all over the floor and wearing camo and trying to find your next kill.
All right, so I've got Ole Miss at number 5 in the West at 4 and 6. Now it gets interesting. Just like I feel like with the East, where you have Kentucky and Tennessee at that mid tier, I think Auburn and A&M are also in that mid tier in the West. I have both teams, Zach, at 6 and 4. And I have
both teams at 7 and 3.
Really? And I have Auburn with the head-to-head over A&M. So I have Auburn 3, A&M 4, but both at 6 and 4 overall. And I have Auburn losing to Kentucky on Saturday. So that's kind of where that comes from. And I got to look and see where I have A&M slipping up at. But, yeah, go ahead with what you got.
Yeah, so I have Auburn winning the tiebreak over A&M. I think that's a toss-up, though, right? Let's see. Auburn plays – last game of the season, and it's home. So, yeah, I picked home game, and I think that was just because I didn't think about them not being fans or as many fans in the stand. So, home field advantage doesn't matter as much because in college football, let's face it, home field advantage matters, right? The crowd, you got kids involved. Things get tight at the end of the game because you can't hear, you can't run your offense. So, maybe I miscued on that. The better team will win at the end of the year. The other thing why I justified – I actually don't know. It's a toss-up. So Auburn and A&M season will be decided at the very end of the season.
Yeah, so who do you have winning that game right now?
I have Auburn winning right now.
Same. So who do you have – who's the 7th win there for A&M?
A&M.
You have A&M. If you have A&M losing to Auburn, you have A&M upsetting somebody notable. Alabama, Florida.
I have A&M beating Florida.
Okay.
It's at home.
And you have Auburn beating Kentucky, which is where I have them at 6-4.
Yeah. So and I picked this schedule like I pick every schedule, like I should, based on schedule, when their bye is, home and away. I take a lot of things into consideration when I fill this thing out. I don't just like write it down. That was my thought process on that.
And I do the same thing. So look, I think we're pretty close there. We view Auburn and A&M basically the same. We have one game difference. Let's see. Number 2 in the SEC West, I have the LSU Tigers at 9-1. I think LSU's only slip up is to Alabama. And Zach, I have the Alabama Crimson Tide at 10-0.
Same.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, that makes the most sense, right? Let's go based on smart, intelligent sports minds. I think both of us and a lot of people on this live stream are, right? We don't get we get some dumb comments. Don't get it twisted. But most of the time, like, you guys know what's going on. We know what's going on. I want to bet on Nick Saban losing the previous year, being pissed off, and making sure. And he has even more authority over his kids because of coronavirus, right? Do your job. This is what you have to do. I'm a military guy. I mean, but that's how he's won. I would bet more on the success of Saban, and I do. That's why I have them 10-0, than Ed Orgeron losing the best quarterback in a decade playing college football and trying to replace him with rah-rah. I think LSU's good, right? I have them at 9-1. I just winner goes Alabama in that conversation.
Yeah, a lot of people are out on LSU this year. A lot of people watching our show don't expect a lot from LSU. I see Rob saying LSU lost a lot, has several opt out. Auburn finishes second. Tom says 5 returning starters, not including quarterback, losing a DC and a de facto offensive coordinator. Okay. A little passive aggressive there from Tom, Tom, I believe, an A&M fan, if I remember correctly. Dom saying LSU was a flash in the pan because of Burrow and Brady. I have to add Joe Brady in there too. Watch him go back to losing to Bama every year. Big Pat says lost too many players. So I think.
Do you think why a lot of players opted out was because they were around they were in Louisiana and the coronavirus hit Louisiana hard?
No, you know why I think they opted out?
Why? I know why.
They just went 15-0. Their best tapes out there. Their national champ. Yeah, hell yeah. Jamar Chase, I'm not going to. Why would Jamar Chase want to have to come in here? The season that Jamar Chase had last year, he had over 100 catches, 20-something touchdowns because he had Joe Burrow throwing to him. Why would Jamar Chase want to come out here and have 70 catches and maybe 12 touchdowns because Miles Brennan's the quarterback?
And you're only playing 10 games.
Yes, so maybe even less than that. So maybe he's cutting his production in half. That makes so much sense for Jamar Chase to come out and say, nah, I'm good. Draft time. That's why LSU players are opting out, because
I just hate that.
They're on top of the world.
Yeah, and we've seen what are they going to be in the NFL with sitting out that long? Yeah,
and
it's a long time not to play football.
Right, and no Clyde to glide too. So look, I think the team that I could be the most wrong about is LSU.
I think Jamar Chase's last game, when he plays his first NFL game, will be a year and a half later. Yes.
Yeah, you're right.
I did that
over a year and a half because September.
Well, it's give or take
January
30 days. Yes.
Yeah, but yeah, which is crazy. You're right. It's like he had an injury, but he's healthy and rested. It's gonna be
not
strange.
Doing it and quarantining.
Well, he's working out for the draft. But I think to the team that I could be most wrong about is LSU. I think LSU has the lowest floor of the top 4 teams, which I think I have Georgia and Florida 1 and 2 in the East. I have Alabama, LSU in the West. The lowest floor is LSU. I can see LSU losing 3 or 4 games.
Let's do this instead of the other question we were planning on doing.
Okay.
who do you think you are the most correct about, and who do you think you are the wrongest about?
Ooh, I like that. Okay, so who do you think that you're the most right about and the most wrong about?
Yeah.
All right, so fair. Okay, we'll do that, but first tell the people about the Tucker Agency.
Yeah, Tucker Agency, they can help you be right all the time. And I'm talking about right in your wallet, in your pocketbook, because you're going to be saving money. 20%, that's the average savings a customer does when they email Tucker, will@tuckertn.com, and say, look, heard about you on A to Z Sports. How do I save money on my insurance? They do all the work. His team goes and looks at your policy and says, let's restructure this way and make it less efficient or less cost less, but still have the efficiency of your policy. That's tuckertn.com, will@tuckertn.com. That's Nashville's independent insurance agency.
All right, A to Z Sports. Zach had a new question for us. Because we've all given our predictions. So what SEC team do you think that you are the most correct about and the most wrong about? I think LSU is probably the most wrong for me because I have them going 9-1. And I think that they could. I would be surprised, but I could see 6-4 happening for LSU because we don't know what to expect with Miles Brennan. We don't, and all the players they've lost on both sides of the ball, who made a lot of plays to help them go 15-0, and no Joe Brady. So I think LSU is the easy answer for me of who I could be most wrong about.
Most wrong for me is I think South Carolina is probably going to win more than one game.
Yeah.
They could, though. I have South Carolina going 1-9, but I'm probably the most wrong about that, and I'm willing to swallow that pill.
Now, who am I most right about?
Mine's easy. I think I'm most right about Alabama. I think Alabama's going to go 10-0. I think this is the season where they go, F you, men, and boom, I'm going to beat all of you, and all of your breaks are going to be beat off because Nick Saban it's like Aaron Rodgers right now. He's just pissed off for glory. And Nick Saban doesn't like the coronavirus like any head football coach. You got to go 60 Minutes. You got to watch the Ed Orgeron special on 60 Minutes they played this past week. It is hilarious. That man is a psychopath. Like, he's fun. Like, I like him. He's more likable than Saban is. But it takes a different mind and a different breed to be a head football coach in the SEC and have sustained success, right? Yeah. That's the hardest part is your ass is going to get fired if you're no good or you're playing for a bad program or coaching. So
Jeremiah says 9-1 for LSU. What's in your coffee, Austin? Apparently the same thing is in Zach's coffee because we have LSU both going 9-1. So the most right for me, because I think I also have Alabama going 10-0. I think Mac Jones is talented enough. Obviously, they lost Judy, they lost Ruggs, they lost a lot of players, but they still got Devontae Smith. They still got who is the other wide receiver who's a beast too? Jalen Waddle. So they still get a lot of speed and talent on the offense and a really good offensive line and good running back. So I'm going to go outside of that. I think I am most right about. I think I'm most right about Kentucky. And I'm going to go out on a limb. I think I'm most right about Kentucky going 6-4.
Yeah, I don't like Kentucky. And it's like I have no reason not to like Kentucky. I just don't like Kentucky.
Yeah.
They do nothing for me. They do the two things that I always say. They have an opportunity to change their season, and they lose that game to a better opponent that they should win in the fourth quarter, and then they lose to a crap team.
Yeah, Michael Hare says Tennessee 6-4. I have the Vols 6-4, but I think so much of that hinges on Saturday against South Carolina.
Yeah, that's a huge swing game just in the first. But I like how Florida is at the end of the season. So all right, before we get to throwing shade, Austin, because I'm full of shade, I'm pissed. Austin, do you think that the SEC season will go without postponed or canceled games?
Like any single one? Like not a single game gets postponed or canceled? I think the answer, the odds are something's going to happen somewhere. I think they go through. I think it's going to be a successful year.
Okay, so that would be my
if they have postponed or canceled games, it'll be a small few, like 5 or less.
So what the SEC has to avoid, if the week that Kentucky plays Vanderbilt and Vanderbilt has an outbreak, that doesn't matter. They have to avoid the big games. You cannot have an outbreak on Alabama's team right before Alabama LSU. You cannot have right before Florida plays Auburn that Florida has an outbreak. That cannot happen. That would be detrimental to our season because let's face it, Austin, the virus is going down. Like of how we view the virus is much different. And you must have seen this yesterday. And I'm not sitting here talking about, I'm not getting into Corona bro talk, but college students, like 48,000 college students have had in America have had coronavirus reported. 2 have gone to the hospital. 0 have died. Right? So you talk about long-term effects of it. You're probably going to get it. It's just like the flu in the fact that you are probably going to attain it. Different than the flu. I don't want to misconstrue that. But let's just face it. We've learned a little bit more about this, that it should be less of an issue. It goes back to the liability of the university, and they have to avoid the big teams and the big names and the big games from being canceled or postponed for this season to be a success.
Yeah, I agree with that about the big games for sure. I think the big conferences haven't had an issue. I know Houston has been a problem. They did not mean to do that, but Houston has been an issue with the coronavirus, and they've had Baylor have a game postponed because of that. But I do think the ACC is off to a good start, and so I believe the SEC will do a great job because I think they've done a great job so far of handling the situation. All right, guys.
That's the last thing. That's why the pansy-ass Big Ten folded like a house of cards under the pressure of Corona bros and then got pressured out of it because football is king in this country.
All right, Zach, it's shade time. Going shade on a Wednesday, every Wednesday. That's how we do it. But before we get to our shade, get your shade in there. Whoever you're throwing shade at, let us hear it. But first, let me tell you guys about Mandu, the pulse of fitness. We got a Mandu workout at 4:30 this afternoon. Looking forward to it. It's going to last 15 minutes, but it's going to simulate 5+ hours in the weight room because of full body electronic muscle stimulation. The science is real. The results are real. Over the last year plus, I've lost 22 pounds of fat. I've gained 8 pounds of muscle. That's huge transformation. I feel great. I'm healthy. I have a bad shoulder. It doesn't hurt because of what I've done with Mandu. Mandu.com. Your first workout is free. And it's great during the pandemic because it's by appointment only. So if your gym, your regular gym out there has some restrictions that is annoying, head to Mandu. Your first workout is absolutely free.
First shade you did earlier in the show, and that is JT Daniels' face.
Oh, it's everything about it. I mean, he's got like the middle part with the flowing hair. His eyebrows are 3 times as thick as his mustache, and he's making a weird like thing with his lips.
Oh yeah, pouty lips.
Yeah, he looks like he's from Shakespeare.
Or he's from like Laguna Beach and like he's got plastic surgery and lip filler.
Yeah.
So let's read a couple of shades because they're already coming in. Elk70, who's an Ohio State fan, says shade on Michigan fans and players because Michigan players came out Saturday crying that the Big Ten gave OSU an easy schedule. Stop crying, bro, and go beat them. I would agree with Elks on that. They need to put up and shut up Jim Harbaugh, take off your cleats, and actually start coaching Michigan to a win over Ohio State, even though I hate Ohio State. Shade on New York Times reporting on football player from Pittsburgh area are dying from COVID when his school isn't even playing football. Tom, I like that.
A lot of that. Yeah, there's been some of that locally too. So I don't know. I don't want to scoop your shade, Zach, but continue.
Oh no, you can't scoop mine. Shade at the CDC for trying to cancel Halloween. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean,
that's my thing is like, there's no reason to cancel something that's 6 weeks away. Like, wait until it's there and then see if it needs to be canceled. That makes no sense to me. The same thing with the Big Ten. It's so easy to cancel things, and so you can do it at the 11th hour.
Yeah, well, Darius comes in and says this isn't shade technically, but Metro starts football this Friday, so shade on COVID trying to cancel our season.
There you go.
I mean, right? It kind of goes hand in hand, you know?
Yeah.
So you go ahead with your shade because mine's got to be.
You reminded me of another shade that I had because Phil Williams from News Channel 5 put out a research study that Metro Health, here's the tweet, right? The tweet is this. Metro Health Department officials released a list of 49 sites, including 6 bars, where COVID-19 clusters were linked to over 2,600 cases. So 49 sites, including 6 bars, equals 2,600 cases. But once you actually get in the link, they clickbaited the hell of you and spun this headline in a horrible way because those 6 bars that they showcased and made you think 6 bars equal 2,600, those 6 bars only had 114 cases. Like, this is not journalism. And Phil Williams is supposed to be a top journalist in the city of Nashville. This is awful. I don't know if Phil Williams composed this tweet or not, but whoever composed the tweet at News Channel 5, absolute blasphemy and irresponsible for doing that. It's so misleading. And in a time where, Zach, we know because we run a digital media company, we know how many people don't click on article links. They only read the headline or the tweet or the Facebook post, and they make their judgment off of that. And Phil Williams at News Channel 5 did an awful job serving their community. That's not even my main shade, but that was a bonus shade.
Ethan says, shit, this is actually funny. I didn't know happened. Shade on Randy Moss for calling out CBS for misspelling Clyde Edwards-Helaire on Come On Man, but then calling Jonnu Smith Juju Smith when you got mossed because Jonnu had that good catch. I didn't see that, but that's pretty funny.
Yeah.
He got.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. Yeah, you can't, what is that, throwing rocks in glass house? Yeah, that thing. So, Zach, what's your shade?
All right, so I'm going full venom on my shade. First shade kind of goes into really a troll. So it's trolls in general. And Fox is reportedly giving an extension to Skip Bayless, the biggest troll of them all. He's more of a gremlin in that regard. Fox, you've sold your soul on that terrible ass show called Undisputed. It's awful. It is the worst program in the history of cable television because that gremlin you have, that old nasty looking Skip Bayless that tries to be cool and wears Jordans, and he's just awful. I hate that show. I hate that guy. But it leads me into my next shade. And I'm not going to say the person's name for the clout, but it's parody accounts hiding behind false names and then going out to troll other people. Do you understand that you are a loser? Like, you are a glorified loser. You probably live in your parents' basement still. You're 36, never had any sort of relationship or responsibility, and you're hiding behind a mask of somebody else to go out and troll the internet because you don't have a good quality job or ambition in your life. You loser, okay? Like, get off. Stop. And this doesn't go for this particular person, which is funny because he's a complete fanboy of this company that I have built with my own 2 hands along with Austin and some other employees. So if you're a fan of what we do, you want to troll, which is hilarious, and he's probably going to listen to this in his parents' basement, drooling over some Hot Pockets because he can't afford a good dinner because he's a hack, okay? So you know who I'm talking to. Listen up, pal. You're a loser, okay? You are a loser. Stop your account. Stop hiding. You're the kind of faceless you-know-what that if you saw me in the streets, you would run, hide, or ask for my autograph, even though I don't even think my autograph's worth anything. That's the kind of hack that you are. So remember that the next time that you go try to troll someone else on the internet.
Yeah. Yeah, I know who you're talking about, and I will not say anything further. But you're right. This is somebody who, if they saw us in person, would say, "Hey, love the show," or "Hey, love what you guys do," or "Hey, how about a picture?" Because that happens every once in a while. But that you're right. It's a troll who is trying to hide behind somebody else.
The funny thing is, I don't even pay attention. Like, other people have to text me that they're trolling because you know why? Troll, I'm talking to you. I'm too busy trying to build a business and make my life better instead of wasting my time trolling people on the internet, right? Yeah. You hack.
Right. Alex says, "I want to know this person." You're not going to. You have to do your own investigation if you want to figure out who Zach's throwing this at. So, all right, like I'm going to hold my shade that I initially had for a rainy day because I was pleased with my pop-up shade performance on Phil Williams and News Channel 5. So, hey, Jacob says your autograph is worthwhile to me, Zach, even though Jacob misspells your name.
Well, again, but that is the humble part of myself. You know, until I become like Dave Portnoy, maybe then, and I have $300 million, and Austin, you have $300 million, maybe it'll be worth something. But right now, it's grind time. It's grind season for the next several years. So I hope one day it will be worth – hell, hopefully it's worth as much as Giannis's basketball card that sold for $1 million.
That'd be something right there. All right, guys. Have a great rest of your Wednesday. Tighten Up Podcast out on the A to Z Sports Podcast Network today. Great content coming all over our social media handles, so make sure you're following us. We will be back tomorrow morning on a Titans Thursday. Buck will be back tonight with A to Z Sports Primetime. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a great day.
Adios.